This is the Opening Cages foster parent training video. And once you've loaded up the app, you're going to come to this screen here. And I've already registered, so you'll see these check marks on mine, but when you click on already a foster parent, you'll be asked to register your account. The very first field asks for your shelter's code. Make sure that if you're connected to a shelter that's using the Opening Cages app, you enter the shelter code before you add animals to the app, or your animals will not appear at the shelter. And even if you don't enter the shelter code, add the animals, and then later go in and add the shelter code, they will only see animals that you add to the app after the shelter code was entered. So it's really important to enter the shelter code before animals are entered, or you'll be entering them twice. Okay, so you go into already a foster parent and you wouldn't see animals here. Your screen would be blank. I already have mine entered, but you would then click add a foster. And then in here, you're going to choose the species. You'll choose the name of the animal. This name is important. You use the name that your shelter wants to refer to the animal with. I know it's tempting to give nicknames, but what we do is we'll put the shelter's chosen name for the animal, and then in brackets, we'll put our nickname if you do like using nicknames. Then you just enter their gender. These are fields that you do not have to set up the first time you set the animal up. The only 3 fields that are mandatory are the species, the name, and the gender. You can leave the rest blank and come back and do them later if you are trying to load in, say, a whole litter of kittens and you're trying to do it quickly. You can just do those 3 and preferably enter a picture, but you don't have to. If you don't enter a picture, I'll just type a name in here just to show you. If you don't enter a picture, then it'll just look like that until you enter the picture. And then you can go into the animal and hit the edit button, and you can make all the changes you want, and then you could go ahead and pick a picture at that time. Wait for it to upload. Every phone is different. This one goes really quickly. This is an Android. The iPhone takes longer to upload the pictures, but it's just putting it in on all these different screens. It puts that photo, so it takes a bit of time. Just if it's spinning, just let it spin. It's okay. It takes a bit of time. And then when you hit save, this is your home button. Takes you back to My Fosters. Now you can see Joey's pictures in there now. So I'm going to go back to Joey for a minute. So the only field on here that's really important you understand is not edible once you've entered something into it is the animal ID. This is the animal ID that your shelter designates to the animal you're looking after. So it's their number. So if you want to enter it later, then you go and you enter it. But once you enter a number in this field, you can only do it once. So when you click save, you're reminded to be very careful that you've put that number in right. If you're not sure, just hit cancel and have another look, and then hit save. So now that you see I've saved it, you can no longer edit it. So if I go into edit, that is not a field you can edit anymore, but you can edit everything else. And another very important thing, especially about Android phones, is the year is up here. If you were fostering an older animal, you click up here to edit the year of the animal. And then you just scroll around to choose the month and the date. And when you click OK, if you go back to the My Foster screen, it now tells you that Joey is 2 years old and 10 months, and he has no appointments. So I'm going to use Tater because I've already set some things up for him. So what you do, once you've set up all your animals, you then will go into each animal, and if they're on a feeding schedule, you want to be reminded, say it's a 4-hour feeder, you would just go in and choose the feeding time that you want to be reminded. And if you make a mistake in here, you just swipe sideways and delete it. And go ahead and enter the time correctly. So it's pretty easy that way. You enter your medications in here. I already set one up. So in here, you're going to give the drug name, the amount you're giving in the dose, the start date, and in here you can choose if it's daily, every other day, weekly, monthly, every 3 months, or once a year. Those are used more in the pet owner version of our app, but it's in both. So usually it's always daily. And then when you enter the amount of days, let's just say the end date right now says November 30th. I'm just going to change it to 18 days, and it automatically changes the end date for you. So you don't have to calculate that. You just put in the amount of days you're giving it, and it'll tell you when to stop giving it. It does include today's date as one of the days you're giving the medication, so that it's included in that, and that gives you your end date. And then you go into setup times in here, the times that you're going to give the animal the medications. So you can, again, same thing, you can swipe sideways if you need to delete something if you made a mistake, and then you just click save. I've already put everything in here. Any notes down here, give with food, or use a syringe, whatever it is you want to put in here for yourself, you enter that in there. And then you go back. You can have multiple medications in here, which lots of foster babies have multiple medications, so it's really good to keep track of. So if you want to set up an appointment for your fosters, you can go into here and you click add an appointment. You can choose the date and time. You can choose the type of appointment. It could be vaccination, surgery, veterinarian, whatever you choose. And the location. And then when you hit save, it goes to the summary screen. And the one that's in blue is your next appointment. So this one would be in the past, this one's your next one, and this one's in the future. So now for Tater, now you're going to go in, this is where you do your daily input. So when you click on the animal, this is where you set things up. When you click on enter stats, this is what you would do on an ongoing basis, daily, every other day, whenever it is that you need to report information back to your shelter, this is where you will do that. So you go into weight, and you can choose the date, the time, today's date and the exact time is what is here when you open it. So it's nice, you don't have to add that every single time. It knows what time it is right now, and you just enter in the weight of the animal. You can choose grams, kilograms, ounces, pounds, whatever you like to use. If the animal's sick and you need to record their temperature, you do that here. Again, you've got Celsius or Fahrenheit. Any notes you can enter here, and your shelter's going to see that. You hit save, and there it is. Again, you make a mistake, just swipe and delete and go back in, or edit it. I mean, if you completely entered something wrong, you might do that, but otherwise just go in and make your change in here and save it. And that immediately goes back to your shelter. So you get a nice ongoing total here, or tally here. You can scroll up as it gets larger and see the progression of the animal's weight. Output is used for their output, their bowel movements. Your shelter, if they're sick, your shelter wants to know. If they have loose bowels, they want to know and see the progression. If they have something wrong with their urine, you would enter that here. Keep in mind that if there is no concern with their bowel movements or their urine, you just ignore this. You don't have to enter all of these features, just the ones you need to report back to your shelter. Wellness, again, if your animal's sick, you may need to tell your shelter that they vomited and what they vomited. So that's handy for them to know. If it was just a hairball, well, that would be pretty normal. If they're coughing, again, yes or no, or just ignore it. If they're not coughing, then it'll stay at not applicable. And same with sneezing. If they're not, then just ignore it. Or you can enter, yes, they're sneezing and it was yellow and green, and then any notes here. And then when you hit save, it goes right back to your shelter. So in here, this is where you're giving the medication. So if you just got a notification to give the metronidazole, then you would come in here. I've already clicked give on that. So you would click on give, and they just remind you, are you sure you're giving the medication? Yes, I'm sure. And then that way you'll be able to keep track easier if you've given a medication or not. And you could have multiple in here. Same with the feeding. If you're trying to keep track, did I feed? Yes, I fed. And any notes, this is where you're going to put detailed notes. Maybe you have some concerns about this animal you want your shelter to be aware of. You could type a big long note in here, and your shelter will get that information in their back office. So that's basically your daily stats, what you would give to the shelter. Also in here, you can go into my profile. In here, you could change your shelter. Our shelter code is set up there. When you click change shelter, you would type in your new shelter here. You can't change shelters unless you delete all your foster animals first. But if you moved and you were fostering for another shelter, that's where you would do that there. Or if you set up the app and you forgot to enter your shelter's code at the beginning, this is where you can do that. Areas of interest, this is where you can switch between the foster parent part of the app and the pet owner part of the app. The pet owner part of the app is a little bit more detailed because it's more of a permanent setup for your animals. You have all these different functions you can do, their food, their pet care, things like that. And then to switch back, you just jump back to areas of interest and go back to the foster parent part. This part of our app, this is for people who want to learn about fostering. So if you have any friends that you think would be good foster parents, you could ask them to download the app and then they could go through all these videos and learn about what fostering is all about. Also in here, your shelter will have documents that they've uploaded for you to view. So this gives you a chance to be able to see information that they want you to view, your manuals and things like that. If you want to share the app, this feature here is used for if you go on vacation and you're going to transfer your animal's information to another foster parent temporarily, you would use that feature. The app support is if you have any questions or problems with the app, you would enter that there, and then we would get back to you about that. And then about app, and then the help section. This is if you're wondering certain things how to do in the app, you can learn it all in here. Just click the arrow and it tells you how to do it. And that's about it. That's the foster parent app. Oh, you can also have your contacts in here. View appointments is for viewing all of your animals' appointments. And if your shelter has opted to upload some videos for you to be trained on, you would find that in this section here.